I think this matchup is pretty even. I think both teams are sort of going through this phase of learning and developing. Invictus, we had very high expectations for them. The Gladiators, we didn't, but they've proven to us that they've done a lot of work in this offseason. So I think right now, I would say pretty evenly matched in terms of progress.
And that's kind of it, isn't it, Dev? It's evenly matched in progress, but what is heavily outweighed has got to be the players. We've got to talk about Invictus first, because they were coming into this stage, the team full of champions, but not the champion team.
Yeah, it's kind of funny like that. Occasionally we'll have these super teams created that sometimes end up to be actually less than the sum of their parts in a way. Like you've got Hysterics and Speakeasy, which both have pretty confidently held the mantle of best player in APAC at various points in time. I think Speakeasy can still hold that. He is simply the best player in the region.
Yep.
And, you know, you've got players like Mentalist who play on Fnatic. You've got Jigsaw, who's an upcoming rookie that has taken 2021 by storm on teams like Bliss within a national circuit in O's. And Nate's also a really solid player who's been around for a while too. So yeah, by all rights, this is a super team. And they had some really dominant games in stage one. And yet they still didn't make top four. They didn't make playoffs. And I mean, it's going to be really tough for them to try and make top two for the major in stage two.
Well, that's just it. The dogfight, if you will, at the top, Mandy, is just getting tougher and tougher. You put it perfectly, and when you said, you know, you kind of made comment on the mid-pack, the middle of the table for where we are right now in APAC South. IG could very well find themselves not in the mid-pack, but at the bottom of the pack with Chiefs if they are unable to pull a result out here.
Absolutely. Like we always say, this is a must-win if you want to stay on top and break through that trench in the midfield and try and get into the top two. Everything is a must-win, even though it's only day two. And I think IG, if they really want to live up to the hype, they'll have to get a win here.
That they will. Let's have a look at who they're going up against. Gladiators, who coming into this, I think many of us had, you know, cautious doubts, Dev. Stage one, I feel like stage one, they actually performed better than what we had expected. But after Playday 1, I think our expectations went up. They beat Elevate, and it kind of simmered out a little bit.
Yeah, look, I mean, stage one was a pretty exciting time for them. Bit of a honeymoon period for the team that had only just promoted into APAC South under the Last Dance. Then they were known as Renatus after that. Now they're GAIMIN Gladiators, obviously. But yeah, they started really strong, took down Elevate. But it's kind of the other flip side to the occasion of how Elevate started slow in stage one and then really found their form. These guys took advantage of a weakened Elevate when Elevate were getting used to their roster changes, and then unfortunately Gladiators just couldn't quite follow through come the end of the stage. And now, look, in stage two, they've started and they've had a really strong start with the Chiefs game 7-3 win for them, which I think everyone was pretty surprised by, and now they're set up really nicely, gunning to be in the top half of the standings.
That could be quite large, Mandy, especially for a team of this stature. You know, like, the opportunity that presents itself in the regular stage is unlike it has ever done so before. You know, 5 best of ones, and you could well completely have locked in a major performance. You know, you don't have to go through those best of threes to force your way to the major now. There is that opportunity. Do we think Gladiators could be one of those teams?
They could be. I think that they still have more work to do, personally. Yep. It's only been one day. They looked good, but it was also against the Chiefs that didn't look amazing and still don't look amazing. So I think they have more to prove if they want to show us that they're a top 2 team and they're worthy of the Berlin Major.
Well, this would be another team to take the scalp of, another big dog of APAC. Regardless of how they've performed so far, they are still as dangerous as ever. Dev, as we look to the vetoes here, do you have any idea as to where we're going to go, or whether you want a certain map in particular to be highlighted?
Well, in stage one, these guys played against each other on Bank, and IG won 7-1. So, I mean, I would love to see Bank. I don't think it's likely. GAIMIN Gladiators obviously beat Chiefs on Theme Park, so perhaps they'll be gunning for that. But looking at my numbers, it doesn't seem to be a map that IG want to play. It's their second most banned. So, I think we're probably going to see a fresh territory here.
Well, let's have a look at where we are heading. Of course, Bank has seen 50% play in APAC South now that it's been banned out by the Gladiators first off the bat. They're not interested whatsoever. Cafe in there, chalet, we go to Theme Park. My word, I know that Xenox is just jumping for joy in the back right now. Mandy, What are we thinking? Theme park, does it leave a lot to be desired?
I think that we saw the Gladiators play a pretty solid theme park last week against the Chiefs. Not sure if it was more that they played a solid theme park or if Chiefs played a bad theme park and it wasn't as strong. But we'll see if Invictus bring a slightly stronger theme park, see if they can take the fight to the Gladiators. But right now, Gladiators are definitely pretty well proven on this map.
They are. They are indeed. Dev, with that in mind, what are you thinking?
Look, I want to back in IG. I think that the map's a bit of an X factor. Gladiators obviously quite good on this if they can take down Chiefs 7-3. IG have only ever played this map once, and it was in their National League, the Operation League. They beat a team called Roosters 7-5. And look, that's not a convincing win, to say the least. But yeah, look, I reckon it's hard to take into account a lot of former results. I just think you look at the fact that IG have the head-to-head 7-1 when they versed Gladiators in Stage 1, and that's really what's bearing on my mind. So I do find it kind of hard to see IG losing this. Like, I think the IG are a team, obviously very talented, with some really significant flaws, but I have a feeling today is going to be one of those really dominant games where we actually see these guys in full force.
Well, let's kind of slow this down a little bit because we do have a bit more time than usual. It seems like we're having some issues getting players into the lobby. No surprises there. I know everyone's absolutely shocked, jaws on the ground at home. But we can probably focus in on, you know, the implications of where both of these teams are at, Mandy, because you've said it perfectly that this is actually a really even game in terms of where these two teams are. The progression they've made, it's not like it hasn't been noticed, but I don't think it's been impressive.
For IG, no, I don't think so. I feel like for IG, they came into it as a super team. They had it with lots of good players, lots of players that put big numbers on the scoreboard, yada-da, right? That type of thing. But it feels like even though it is that nature where all the players are individually very strong, it's hard to put them together. And I feel like they're really missing that structure. They're missing enablers to the players that are supposed to be enabled, if you will. Whereas on the side of Gladiators, I feel like their structure does set them up for success. I think they do have their enablers, they have their fraggers as well, and it's just about taking the time to refine that process.
I think it goes to show, you know, you look to IG, and you look to the two players that probably stand out the most, both Jigsaw and Speakeasy. They had phenomenal weeks last week, even though we might not have been totally convinced of their performance against the Knights, kept it close and showed once again that the individuals on this team may well outshine a team, Dev. But yeah. I think when you look more so to Gladiator, are they the holistic team? I mean, Joe coming to this roster now, does that bring that firepower that might have been missing?
Maybe, yeah, I mean, obviously there's also the former teammate connection there with Joe used to play for IG. But I don't know, it's hard to say that that Gladiator rely on specific players. I think that they're pretty well-rounded. I don't think necessarily Joe is going to, you know, be the deciding factor, though he has been known to be quite the fragger in moments. Gladiators just, I think, pretty well-rounded team. Like, they won a lot of 4v5s against Chiefs. They also won quite a few 1v1s. And just really good at kind of just staple defense stuff on Theme Park. And I think that they didn't, like they just played, for example, you can play a lot of choke points on Theme Park. You know, if the attackers don't go through the motions of hard breaching, and that's something where Gladiators seem to retain their composure and just bring it back to basics when they need to. But the one thing that's really going for Gladiators is momentum, in my mind. The last 3 APAC South games Gladiators have played have been wins. The last 3 matches that IG have played in APAC South have been losses. They're on a 3-game losing streak.
That's actually a lot more damning than what I thought it was going to be. I thought maybe we were going to go down the line of Gladiators on the victory, but you know, when you do consider that obviously IG missed out on playoffs for Stage 1 and narrowly missing out, only losing head-to-head against the Knights, this storyline starts to get a little bit more complicated. And, you know, I mean, I don't want to say I'm backing in Gladiators too hard, but Mandy, it is at that point where if IG lose another game, which will make it 4 straight for the regular stage of Stage 1 and Stage 2, do we start to poke and prod and poke holes in what they haven't been able to achieve?
I think so. I think this is a very important hurdle for IG, just as this is an important hurdle for Gladiators. I think if Gladiators can take down IG here, That's a big step up for them. That proves that they are actually deserving to be here in APAC South. They are contending with what we consider strong teams, with what we consider teams of the APAC South nature, that kind of aggression that IG bring. But on the side of IG, if they lose this map, we start to question, are they really meant to be here? This is a team that is just up and coming in the last few months, and you're still dropping the ball to them. Is the progress ever going to happen? Is that change ever going to start to happen for IG? And I think today they have to prove it to us.
Well, I've got to say this. I really appreciate both of you going on the journey of the philosophy of APAC, in particular IG and Gladiators. Thank you all for sticking around for that. It is time to get underway. And this time, I am 100% confident it is Guz and it is Xenox.
Well, thank you very much, Mandy, for all of those questions. I love questions, so I'm glad that we've got someone on the desk who's doing their job properly. Guys, big game here, of course, a lot of implications. Of course, yes, only Playday 2, but nevertheless, IG, this does feel like a game they need to be winning. If they lose this, especially in regulation, not only, of course, do they not get the points, but then GAIMIN Gladiators would go to 6 points early on.
Well, they won the head-to-head last stage, 7-1. It was a very confident victory against the then Renatus roster, now picked up by the Gladiators. So very keen to see how that has evolved over the break. Neither team went to the major. In fact, neither team qualified for the stage 1 player. So it's all to play for here in the second stage, and we'll see whether or not either one really has what it takes to push the top 2.
Well, it is the Bank and Theme Park season. Xenox fun fact coming straight to you. We've only had 3 maps through 2 play days. And that third map, Guz, was only played once, which was Cafe, your favorite map too. We have not had a lot of map diversity to start off APAC South, unfortunately, despite the increased map pool. We just keep going back to Bank and Theme Park.
Well, that's the nature of best of ones. I don't think the 9 map pool makes much of a difference. It would if we still had playoffs, and it will at the major, but here in a best of 1 format you could probably have 25 maps and you'd probably still only get a couple played. It's just the way the teams focus in on their strengths and cut out their weaknesses. Anyway, it is what it is. We head into the ban phase. Thatcher, Mav off the board, so hard breach on the attack is going to be challenging. Alibi is an interesting one from Invictus. It is a shield taken down, potentially impacts as well if that's run. And Alibi all around very strong fragger. We'll see what the response is from the Gladiators, the final ban of the map here, and it's Kaid.
Well, let's get underway for our final game of this evening. For Playday 2 of APAC South, we head back to Theme Park for the second time in a row. Invictus will be on the offense, Gladiators on the defense. And excited for this one, of course, for GAIMIN Gladiators. They took down the Chiefs in Playday 1, pretty convincingly 7-3. For IG, they lost in OT to the Knights, of course, who we just saw lose to Elevate rather convincingly in that second half as well on Theme Park. So an intriguing battle between these two teams. Like you said earlier, of course, in Stage 1, it was extremely one-sided to IG. 7-1 was that result, and that was on Bank. So as we head into Theme Park for our final game of the night. Big match for GAIMIN Gladiators as well, guys. They play Fury in Playday 3. Now, Fury's no longer a walkover team, but if they beat IG here, I'd put them as favorites there, and then that could be 9 points through their first 3 games. Could this be a potential major contender? We will see. Long season to go, but a result here goes a long way.
It certainly does, and Gladiators almost feel reminiscent of Direwolves last year in the sense of until you saw it, you didn't believe it, right? You were always thinking, are they really going to be able to push the envelope a little bit further? Are they really a team that's a top contender, even though they would continue to prove themselves? So I think that's the story that's going to develop a little bit here for these guys. We'll see whether or not maybe Playday 1 was a one-off, or whether or not they can replicate that form here. IG, never a walkover opponent, very challenging and still developing and improving. Hoven, aggressive, goes for that run out, but it doesn't connect. And yeah, I was just going to reiterate, last time these two played, incredible discrepancy. IG, well and truly the much stronger team. Renatus had a lot of teething issues in that first stage, and that led to the 7-1 victory to IG. This one, though, should well be a lot closer.
Do want to just bring up the fact that, of course, in our last game that we just had on the stream, Azami was banned out for the Elevate Knights matchup. It is, of course, in play here. Hoven bringing out the Azami now. We'll see if those Kiba barriers can have an impact here on Theme Park. A couple of shields as well already deployed over towards Corridor, and has the shield as well, of course, as those Kiba barriers. So we'll see. This is going to be, I guess, already a big difference between these two teams and the matchup we saw just prior between Elevate and Knights. I'm expecting a little bit more of this, guys. A bit more of these stalemates at windows and doors position, more hold-up kind of corridors with shields and, of course, the barriers, and maybe less sort of roam game.
Hoven really looking to just wither down this time. IG have a lot of utility to deal with the barriers that they can't otherwise punch. Habana, a perfect counter to those barriers at 2x Kairos, and you can deal with them in an instant. You can save them for the hard breach walls later on in the push. Invictus do eventually thought that defensive effort, but it's taken half the round. Bit of utility expended as well, so that's the flashbangs from Hysterics gone, and one nade apiece for Mentalist or Jigsaw already used up.
Yeah, and it's job done from Hoven there too, right? Gets away scotch-free, doesn't lose any life. Obviously uses all of those Kiba barriers, but I mean, that's kind of the job, to sort of hold up Invictus for as long as possible. And especially here, forcing them to rush site, 5v5, etc., I think is really going to play into the hands of Gladiators if that does eventuate, especially when we got Rix on the smoke as well. So a good start from the Gladiators defensively, but they are giving some time now for Invictus to open up this wall and get that sort of avenue onto site. 50 seconds does get denied. And that's going to be one more exothermic to get through now for Nate. If he can't get this open, obviously you got Speakeasy with those X-Kairos, but there's not a lot of time to sort of cycle through that. It's denied. Wall's going to probably stay closed. There's only 30 seconds left. Obviously there's a little bit of a hole there. Ape's also going to deny the last second X-Kairos that were thrown at it. It is the kill that goes the way of Invictus. So despite this defense from Gladiators, it's IG that find the opening pick.
But I think it's only a line of sight. I don't believe it's an entry, so the doorway is critical here. They need to be shut down by the Gladiators. It's a 4v5, but forcing themselves into sight in the midst of these smoke grenades is going to be tough. But IG and Speakeasy making it work. Hoven caught reloading. Now Tolji on the flank, but he's shut down as well. What an entry from Speakeasy.
Yeah, he held that position, held that wall. I think you were right. Not sure if they could actually get in from it, but it was opened up enough that it had a very significant line of sight onto site, and IG will capitalize courtesy of Speakeasy in the end. It's a battle of minigames essentially in that opening round, beginning of course with the Azami and the shield over towards the corridor, and then back over towards site, and obviously trying to deny that wall being opened up, which was done successfully for the most part. Ape did a great job, then loses his life rather you know, I don't want to say easily, but in a way that he wouldn't obviously be happy with. And from there, IG just sort of overwhelmed the site towards the end. Well played to Invictus, because that looked like a round that Gladiators were in pretty good control.
Now I've just had a pigeon land on my shoulder. Its name is James, and he's delivered some very critical information heading into this head-to-head. In fact, these two have actually taken each other on this map, on Theme Park, very recently. The Operation League final, I believe it was the grand final. 7-5. Gladiators were then known as Roosters. They took that victory. So maybe that just spiced things up a little bit more heading into this one. Slightly different dynamic, I believe. That may have been a best of 5. So obviously the veto and whatnot plays out differently. Fatigue is more of an element, etc. But nonetheless, a good sign for Gladiators here in this one, albeit not the most ideal of starts.
Yeah, it's only one round. Good signs, though. I think from, again, both teams, this was a lot of the talking points that we had between Elevate and Knights, more so in the first round. What I will say, though, is with how significantly strong Elevate looked on the defense of Theme Park, it does worry me if Gladiators have either even a 50-50 kind of first half here or get blown out by IG. In some ways, I think now we're probably expecting defenders to do better here on Theme Park, and Elevate very much showed that first hand in our last match and how much control they really had on the game. Knights couldn't necessarily do a whole lot. So for IG, a good start to get this opening round on the board nice and early. So of course the Izami in the last round, but for Hoven and the Gladiators, they will switch off of it. Saw the Frost, Ape of course, on the Frost now. We saw it played in the last match too, found a couple of good block mat downs. It was impactful.
Changing back. Attackers have dropped the bomb diffuser.
much more subdued pace in this round. Last time we had those keeper barriers flying around, utility to follow, and at the halfway point of the round, that was really when IG began to activate. This time, similar time frame, but a little bit quieter across the map. That deployable shield inside initiation dealt with. A nice frag grenade there from Jigsaw sent deep. Nate will scout ahead with that drone, I believe now it has been down. But Jigsaw are able to get a little bit more control.
Oh, pinged out.
Control room itself, yellow ping, grenade to follow, forces that player back, but the defender has escaped.
Yeah, one of those sort of situations where Jigsaw gets the ping, goes for the nade, but as he's sort of doing that action, the player that was pinged and did push up kind of starts moving back. And had he actually just sort of scoped into that wall, he maybe finds a tag there, but always a tricky one. Still 5 versus 5, a minute left, so yeah, no real confrontations in this second round, and honestly a bit of a difference to what we saw between Elevate Knights. A lot more mid-round action, a lot more off-meta positions and fighting, especially areas like cafes. Saw a lot of aggression early on, not seeing that as much as early. A lot of utility though to clear through if you are Invictus, so obviously taking their time in doing so, but I think they've actually just sort of sped up. In the last 10 to 15 seconds, now they're really trying to just push through, clear this utility. 30 seconds left. Nate, hello, finds the pick onto Rick, so now they've got the advantage once again.
That's someone we haven't spoken much about, the Kali in play and doing damage. Now it's a 4 versus 4 with 20 seconds still on the clock. Invictus need to get men into sight. Jigsaw, a good entry, that's Tolji. Taken down with no response, but it's Joe to trade, a former member of this team. Now a 2-on-2. Ape left to clutch, Speak easy to cover. He had a good first round, but he needs to win this fight, but he can't find it. The angle too good from Ape. The time expires, and Gladiators claim the round.
Just sticking that back leg out from behind the bomb chassis, and Ape finds a big kill to basically win the round for Gladiators single-handedly. 1-1. Here is the start on Theme Park between these two teams. A big round win there for the Gladiators, because for all intents and purposes, it looked like it was snowballing the way of IG. Once those trades started to come out, they felt on top for me. I felt like Invictus were very much winning those trades. Late round, they were able to just sort of win through sheer firepower. Took them a lot of time, though, to clear that utility, especially early on in that round. So far, we're seeing a rather slow Invictus. Whether that's through the defense of Gladiators, which we saw obviously in round 1, was a big part from Hoven on the Azami, so yes. But also then in the side of round 2 was probably more so through the amount of utility that Gladiators was pushing out and that IG had to sort of push through. So really good defense right now from Gladiators. They get their reward in the second round with a round win. It's a nice even start between these two teams early on.
Certainly a couple of interesting dynamics being brought out here, particularly from Gladiators first round, heavily reliant on the keeper barriers to waste time, etc. with the attacking efforts from IG, but then the second round was a lot more subdued and a lot more reliant on heavy utility on site. But it flips once more. Hoven, the spawn kill run out onto Mentalist, the sledge dealt with. That's going to take away 2 grenades, the sledgehammer, and may well be a knock to the confidence of IG on this attack.
Yeah, and you add all of that, but most importantly, you've now just got that advantage really early in the round. Makes things a little bit more difficult for Invictus in the way that maybe they want to clear out these areas, especially with the sledge opening up those walls. Yeah, this is a bit tricky now for Invictus. They probably may end up inadvertently slowing things down even more so, or look to try and get on the offense here and see if they can go for a counterpunch. It hasn't happened, and about 20 seconds is now sort of wrapped up. That is a wonderful nade from Jigsaw. And finds the kill onto Ape, whether intentional or not, it was perfectly placed, and IG do get that one back. So now 4 versus 4, and does at least relieve a little bit of pressure for Invictus.
Jigsaw's grenade game, from what we've seen on stream so far, impeccable. Whether it be util or players clearing out both. And IG doing a good job to just steady this ship a little bit. Once more, Nate sticking at the Kali, an operator, even when Thatcher is banned, sees so little play, but might have an impact here. On theme, trying to disrupt some of those mute jammers perhaps that have been placed around to deny the walls. Depending on where those have been placed, the Kali with those Lance Claws could be actually quite effective. Now, I don't know where that mute jammer, if there even is one on that wall, even is placed. They may be prioritizing drone information here on the defense. Nonetheless, an interesting dynamic to keep our eyes on over the course of the next 70 seconds.
Yellow corridor control now for Invictus, close to sight. You can see pretty much not a lot of forward-facing aggression from the Gladiators either, a bit more on the backside. This is going to favour Invictus. If these trades do start to ring out, I think they're going to be favoured to really overwhelm the side at the moment. 50 seconds remaining. First gas bait does get thrown out from Tolji. Speakeasy now to break and open up this wall. Try and get a nice sight line in towards the B-bomb site. 40 seconds left though, and time, it will start to be a factor through the drone hold. Speakeasy almost gets eliminated from the bottom of his feet. Tolji falls to Nate. Now IG with a big advantage, courtesy of Jigsaw getting a second in quick succession. Nate now drops out of control. Swinging player does not get punished. That's Rix in initiation. Has another player on the other side of him now. Not much of time remaining at all. Full white, he'll get swung, he'll die. Round goes the way of Invictus.
Invictus so far have been looking very strong in the late round when they're able to find an opening and exploit it. Good job there. We didn't quite see those two entry picks in towards the side that was pressuring it, but nonetheless the cleanup was very, very tidy. Still tricky though to pick these two apart. The fourth round though should give us a bigger indication. We head back over towards Armory. And last time IG, despite not getting an entry from a wall itself, still made it work. They were not in the most optimal of positions, but Speakeasy, as so often is the case, one of the strongest players, if not the strongest in the league, never mind IG, stepped up massively for his team, and I'm sure they'll be looking to maybe not be quite as reliant on him this round, but instead tidy up that hard breach and force that pressure on to start a bit earlier.
I mean, in fairness, with the thrown wall not getting opened up, there was a big chunk actually blown open that had that sight line still established, and I guess what that means is it does make it difficult to sit in the middle of the site looking at the doorway, which you would probably want to do if you do keep that wall closed. And I think at one point there was a couple of players that inadvertently forgot that that wall had quite a big chunk blown out of it, so Speakeasy found like a quick double kill pretty quickly from that position, even though he couldn't actually get into sight from there. So not ideal, because you would like to push in there with the diffuser, but if you can at least still use it for lines of sight and make it a little bit easier for others to push in elsewhere, it's still somewhat of a result in the end. Invictus though, 2 attacking rounds to the good already. And I do fear for Gladiators, if this does go to 3 attacking round wins for Invictus, it's going to be a good half for IG. Gladiators definitely need to keep the rounds ticking over here on the defense of Theme Park.
Yep, this is 100% where we need to see them formulate a bit of a response. Not necessarily in the early round on this objective. Last time that was strong, and Hoven once more will commit to the Azami, which saw a lot of success in that previous round. That previous attempt, rather, on this site. Over towards Cash, looking top Dragon Stairs as well, and really forcing Invictus to drone this out quite thoroughly. And you expect the response to be quite fierce. They cannot allow this player up above to cause too much chaos, but you see the setup, a deployable shield, reinforced walls, keeper barriers to help just slow down these window pushes, and the doorway into Cash. There's a lot to deal with. An impact though from Hoven.
Yeah, that's weird.
I think trying to do a bit of damage on the player, potentially smacking that barrier, but it didn't really achieve much.
Certainly didn't, and that's positioned down, although, well, they did find the kill onto Nate. This is a stark contrast to what we've had here in this match. Early frags go out around the map, and we end up in a 3 versus 3. 8 below on health, though. So in some ways, it's not too bad, although obviously Hysterics low himself. Still 2 adrenal searches available, and now can use the next one to recover a bit of that health. Mentalist will be able to get back to full health, and Hysterics just over half. So I think when it's all said and done, IG will be a little happier, I guess, in this position compared to Gladiators. 3 versus 3. Less defenders to deal with, less positions that they got to check. A minute 10 drone. I don't know if that was a misdrone on Tolji or not, if he's been able to sort of sneak by on the Oryx or what the case is there. But minute left. IG obviously still just trying to clear out these positions as they make their way over to site.
Split hatch as well does potentially pose a threat. If Tolji elects to go back up that hatch in the late round and potentially catch the likes of Hysterics or Mentalist up above, for example. But we'll have to wait and see if that comes into fruition. 40 seconds left, and IG just completing the groundwork. I think Speakeasy's pretty eager to get over towards the yellow wall and get the wall itself open. But the
is he just going to swing bot yellow stairs or something like last second? He's got, I think, intel to swing this Tolji. Beepers go off as well. 25 seconds left. He's got somewhat of an idea. He is playing a very patient game, though. Oh, Hysterics was watching the game sense. It's perfect. He knew there was only one angle behind them that could cause serious harm, and he, of course, watching and waiting for it. Not a bad play from Tolji. The right play. Just couldn't quite execute it, courtesy of Hysterics and IG swarm site now. Not a lot of time. Rix cannot, though, play for said time. It's another round win for Invictus.
And even tidier than the last attempt here by IG, and that starts to spell disaster for Gladiators if it really does truly spiral out of control. Scoreline may not suggest it so far, but the fact that Throne's been doubled down by the attack is not a very positive sign, especially with Thatcher and Mav off the board, arguably making that site very, very tricky. That said, we could see a small recovery effort here from Gladiators over towards Lab and Storage, but I must say, I think it's more so the fashion in which the rounds are probably being converted here by IG. Of increasing concern for Gladiators. They seem to be being read extremely well by these attacks, and despite IG maybe experimenting with some stuff that we don't often see, like the Kali, for example, they are making it work very, very well.
Speak easy, 6-0-0. Perfect start from the first 4 rounds. Hysterics as well, 4-1, so clean numbers across the board for Invictus. Gladiators have had some okay moments, done some good things. I mean, even Tolji goes in that last round, good positioning, right play, right position. Just Hysterics kind of had the ace up the sleeve to shut that play down. If Hysterics is not watching that angle, I'll tell you now, Gladiators win that round. It's as simple as that. So those little moments, those little plays, they add up over the course of a game, over the course of a match, and obviously over the course of a season. And for Invictus, it has them up now 3-1, going into the 5th round. Last 2 rounds of this opening half, so vital for the Gladiators. In some ways, feel like they have to get the next 2, bring it back to 3-3, if they are to stand a chance in the second half.
Nate, once more, getting a little bit experimental here in terms of attacking picks. Fairly certain this was a repick onto the Amaru, so certainly a play in mind. Nook as well, activated by Hysterics. Just those 2 operators alone, the Amaru and the Nook, can cause quite a bit of chaos. Throw a spanner in the works in terms of the pacing of the round, especially if they manage to find an opening pick or even some quick map control and cut off any rotations from the defense. At the moment, though, we wait patiently for anything to really come into fruition. Nothing too wild that I've seen so far from the Gladiators, though. Warden in play, a very powerful operator in the current meta. Great counter to Sens if anyone elects to play them. Deployable shield and a 1.5 in the MPX, also not to be scoffed at.
Jigsaw with the nades.
They've been so good.
Continuing. I can imagine it was another good one, and yeah, evidently the remains suggesting a well-placed one by Jigsaw. And again, it just gives Invictus those early advantages that make it so difficult for Gladiators from the get-go. They're just playing it, man, down. Jigsaw got greedy with that particular nade. Helpman survives. And of course got down onto Jigsaw. Tolji confirms that kill. Oh, the drop down too, and an inopportune time for Mental as Tolji was already waiting and watching at the top of Yellow Stairs. IG are falling apart here, but Hysterics with a clean spray on the backside of Yellow Corridor. But Hoven punishes the overstep. Nate, you've got to land those once as he drops down. Nate was just not in the best position to land it immediately, but follows up on the Amaru. And with 50 seconds remaining, it is a 1 versus 1 between Nate and Ape.
This has been an insane round.
He's dead.
Oh, but Ape clutches the 1v1. So many trades through the mid portion of that round. Nobody wanted to forfeit control up above, whether it be the attack or the defense, but great composure there to close out the round. A valiant effort from Nate, just unable to find that final kill. 3-2 the scoreline. Gladiators keeping their heads above water for now. Bunk daycare though. This is a really big round. If they can get it back to a 3-3, start to get a little bit more confident for them. But it's almost feeling reminiscent of that Knights game previously, right? Where they did get it back to that 3v3 and then just had nothing on the attack, no steam left to close out that game or even be competitive. So we have to be very, very cautious with our expectations as we proceed forward. I think it's fair to say Invictus at the moment still just look a little bit better across the board. They have the advantage, and they're in a good position to extend that lead.
I definitely feel as if Invictus will be better on the defense and controlling the game, the way that probably the Gladiators haven't been able to do so. But full credit to the Gladiators in that last round. You know, you lose a player early on. Again, Jigsaw's finding these sort of nade kills. It can be mentally draining and constantly playing from behind. But, you know, it didn't affect them, or at least they didn't let it affect them, and they were able to sort of bring that round back. And you know, highlights how far this team has been able to come over the last couple of months from their, you know, initial Promorello promotion to stage 1, where they had some good highs and maybe some low lows. And obviously, you think back to sort of that 7-1 result in stage 1, and compared to this, and compared to the last time they played when they were Roosters, they've come a long way. 3-2 scoreline, and yes, obviously, if they do win this round and bring it back to 3-3, you don't just immediately get on the bandwagon and say that, you know, they're going to run it home in the second half, because IG on the defense are going to be a very, very difficult team to crack defensively. But all the Gladiators can do is take it one round at a time. And on the last one, can they close out the half?
Once again, the first minute of the round, relatively quiet. Perhaps the expectation of the pacing and the tempo of this match was a little bit lopsided after some of the initial rounds where there was a lot of aggression on defense. That said, Mentalist sneaking his way around. Rethrown. Now he's potentially in a position to go for grenades on the vert if that's his objective. Not quite sure why else you would be playing a sledge down below. I don't think there's really many opportunities to get the sledgehammer to work, but nonetheless, he elects to fall off that and now relink with the rest of the team, now taking control, cash across.
I think a big part of why we're seeing these kind of slow beginnings in this first half is the way that Gladiators have sort of played defensively. I mean, basically besides the Azami hold-up play, we haven't really seen anything else that is a little bit aggressive there for Mentalist to sort of just shoulder pick that or throw in the nade. Joe gets an easy kill. But yeah, regardless, we're not really seeing Gladiators pushing too aggressive into the face of Invictus. And I think that's why we're seeing sort of the slower play style here. IG obviously clearing out these positions, and Mentalist just sort of overstepping that position and couldn't quite get the nade in time, loses his life. Derek's now pushing in towards Cafe, throws out the nade. And it is Speakeasy who finds the kill back for Invictus. 4 versus 4, 40 seconds remaining.
Oh, Speakeasy, the awareness, the game sense. Shuts down Hoven, gives Invictus the advantage. A 3-on-3 now as Ape responds. This is such a close round, but the LMG from Hysterics lights up the kill feed.
Round slipping away and half slipping away now for Gladiators. More nades from Jigsaw. But there has been a reposition. The second nade off the mark completely. Now on the left side, should win this and does against Rix, who I thought made a good little reposition on site, but not to be in the end. Joe does get Speakeasy. Now time a factor though as well. No diffuser. Jigsaw needs to make the big play here to win the round and cannot. Time runs out. Gladiators still one away to close the half. 3-3 from an unfavorable position, where it seemed like IG were going to win that round.
Fence on that in that particular match, just run away with it. It was flawless from Elevate, and I'm sure Invictus will be keeping a keen eye on that, and I don't think they're going to be too afraid heading into the second half.
Definitely fighting tooth and nail for every round here. The Gladiators, it hasn't been clean. There hasn't really been a round where they've won flawlessly without it, you know, actually being a flawless round. They haven't necessarily won clean and looked like the dominant team. Generally on the back foot. Invictus have been able to be the better team at finding these early picks, getting these advantages early on in the rounds, but just not quite capitalizing the way you would almost expect and in some ways hope from a team like Invictus. So Gladiators have done well to keep the pace, to keep grinding, to stay in this game. No tack timeouts have been called yet, so both available for both teams, and it's Tolji that finds an opening pick through the drone hole on Hysterics. What a way to open things up in the second half. And right now, it's advantage Gladiators, not just in the round, but technically the game. 3-3, but it's 5-4 in the round.
Cheeky play there from Gladiators, but any edge you can get heading into a theme park, execute, is going to serve you very, very well. And
It's
Hysterics,
the Azami.
yeah, as often is the case, switched on and on an operator where their utility refreshes the longer they stay alive and the longer the round extends. It's not like a Valkyrie, for example, where you can place those cameras early and then forfeit your life. On the topic of
That's a big
Valkyrie,
kick.
Jigsaw Roku gets Hoven, and that's Finker, another very powerful operator taken off the board. So you could almost argue that the most powerful operator for both the attack and the defense have been struck down very early in this 7th round.
Yeah, 1 for 1, I'd say fair. 4 versus 4, but yeah, 2 big operators taken off the board for both teams. I'd almost rather the Finker, in all honesty. Towards the late round, those adrenal surges can be different makers. Obviously, Tolji's still on the Jackal, getting a bit of information with the Inox scanner. Just under 90 seconds remaining in the round now, and there is that ping, but not a lot really to follow up on it. E1D deployed too. Now yellow ping as well on top of the scan from the Jackal, and Abe is trying to follow up on it, but the timing, it's everything and more. But Tolji swings, knowing where Speakeasy was. So in the end, at least another 1 for 1 there. Mentalist takes a bit of damage from up above. 60 seconds left. It's 3 versus 3.
Oh, the Pokeball though, Tolji gets trapped up above. Very well played from Mentalist under a lot of pressure trying to play around that pillar position. So now it's left up to Joe and Rix. Gladiators starting off this round so well, but now on the back foot. Asalma over towards yellow wall to try and get an entry point in for a potential plant, but it's going to be such a challenge, especially if that's a vault.
Yeah, and no EE1D available for Joe. Salma's used now as well.
Ooh.
Joe finds the kill onto Mentalist, who admittedly was quite low on health. So if he was to find anyone, if you're Invictus, that was the one to get rid of. Now you've still got Nate, Jigsaw, full health, Nitrocell as well in hand, throws it out perfectly. Doesn't just do it with the nades, guys. He uses those Nitrocells to perfection as well. And Joe spots surely the backside, a pixel, a sliver, but no, couldn't convert. Now does so with the last second swing. Time though is the biggest factor. It is the main factor, and IG win on time.
Well done there by Invictus. It was a very, very disappointing start seeing the Azami fall, but they managed to recover. Great trade onto the Finker and a good shutdown over towards site. Mentalist, we saw a fantastic impact grenade to once more give his team the advantage. And although he fell late, there was so much information, the entry point so challenging as well for the attack that Invictus had the advantage. They played into it so well. Jigsaw, his projectile game has been absolutely spot on, except for one grenade, but we'll look past that because all the others that have hit have been absolutely incredible, and the presence of mind, of course, of Nate to just sit back and let that time expire. Well done by Invictus. They now have the lead, and they'll want to just snowball this momentum from site to site, not give Gladiators an inch.
Yeah, and fair credit to Gladiators. At any time, you know, they've been given an inch, say. They've been able to make the most of it and convert, capitalize, and win some rounds where, you know, you sit back in some of those rounds in the first half, you're thinking IG's going to just sort of run away with it and, you know, close out those particular rounds. And then, but Gladiators get that little look in, and then they really bring it home. But we did say, of course, in that first half, defender-sided, probably expect Invictus to be able to control the game defensively in the second half. And while it didn't really look that way in the first round, I do probably expect it to play out that way as we continue on in the second half. Definitely the more mature team, definitely the team with massive aspirations. And for them, 3 points is arguably what they need at minimum. If they're going to be making top 2, you need all the points you can get.
Speakeasy entrusted with the Azami this round, and I probably couldn't think of too many scarier men or women on planet Earth that could play this operator. So much versatility, and Speakeasy, we know he's so aggressive and so sharp. He has the ability to really slow down this attack if so desired, but it seems as if Invictus quite content in actually allowing Gladiators to get control here on the eastern side, and the defense instead backing themselves in to bolster the side. It's
Gladiators have to really bring home this round.
Nate with some good information posted up on Yellow Stairs, but doesn't act on it. IG continuing to back themselves in to hold against this push, and Gladiators, I don't know if they've done enough groundwork. A rotation over towards Cafe late does apply a little bit of pressure in this top yellow position. Very challenging to hold on to, but they only have 30 seconds for this push.
Yeah, Nate's got way too much pressure there. He's double white and he's alone, top yellow, so dies pretty quickly there. They do lose the ace, don't necessarily need him. Adrenal Surges have been used from Holven, but there goes the Ying. Candelas didn't really see them go out, or at the very least have an effect. Now you start to wonder, is this attack for Gladiators going to be successful at all? Ape somehow surviving through the wall there on the Amaru. Very low on health. Jigsaw playing the bomb chassis very well, but Tolji spots him on the left-hand side. Time, though, running out for Gladiators. Into red time we go. Ape with a big kill. Hoven as well. Now just down to Speak Easy. He loves these moments, but he cannot stand up in this particular one. The attack of Gladiators far too strong in the end and successful.
The swing game from the Gladiators on point, so sharp. They had good information as well. I don't know whether or not that drone inside of the kids' dorms was taken down or not. We saw Jigsaw when he was frantically 180ing around trying to find him. It was right down at his feet next to the chassis. That would have been feeding a lot of good information. Don't know, of course, how much of that was actually impactful in that round. We don't hear the comms, etc. We also don't know when that drone was taken down, if it was. So something to keep an eye on, but nonetheless, super close. Speak Easy. You often back him in to win those moments. That's why he's on the team. That's why he's one of the best players in the league, if not the world. And didn't quite step up there, but can't fault him. And it was I think just the entire game plan from Invictus really hinged on them holding out against that push late round. And the trades just fell short. Right at that final hurdle, someone tripped up, someone didn't find that trade, someone didn't find that piece of information. Gladiators, to their credit, continued to persist, and they made it work.
I think a big one was actually the spray onto Ape. I think it might have been Jigsaw behind the bomb chassis, and I mean, it's not like it was Jigsaw's fault, but the spray through the wall just didn't quite get the kill. Ape ended up surviving with a sliver of health, and from there ended up finding like 1 or 2 kills, and was a sort of difference maker. If Jigsaw was able to, end up, taking him down there, then I don't think that round goes the way for Gladiators. Again, it's not a slight on Jigsaw, it's literally just blind fire through the wall, so it's a difficult shot, but that ended up, I think, being the turning point. Ape surviving, and then Ape surviving, he was able to go and have a big impact towards the end of that round. It's 4-4 though, and we've got ourselves a game. Definitely, I think now we can say it, guys. We wanted to probably wait to see the second half. I've seen enough. I think this is a Gladiators team that can really push Invictus. Again, they're playing into the Amaru and the Finker. They do drop the Ying, and I don't mind that because we didn't see the Candelas have an effect anyway. Joe went out really early. You've got the Yana now, which can have more of an effect in the mid-game, along with that projector being used at the late game as well. Last little bit of intel pushing onto site, so you can go in, lead with that, and then everyone can follow the Finker, the Amaru, etc.
Top level analysis there, Jake. Really good stuff from you, and we'll see whether or not these players inside the server will be able to adapt their own playstyles on the fly. One of the hallmarks of the current meta. Aggressive from Tolji. That's another hallmark of this meta. Teams that can show that initiation often rewarded. Those left stagnant, often taken down. Asterix, though, responds. And again, this feels like it's going to be a trade for trade for trade.
Yeah, but you've lost the Finker, right? It goes back to that round earlier where it was the Azami and the Finker that both went down, and you sort of ponder which one's more effective. And I guess it's similar to with the Wamai. Not having those magnets continually progress to recharge throughout the round is obviously an effect that is going to be missed for Invictus. But I still think and the way that Gladiators are playing, they want the Finker, and Rix gets an easy kill into Hysterics. I don't understand the little crouch walk, and I don't understand how Jigsaw keeps hitting these throwables. I swear, we're not quite catching them all, but we just see it in the kill feed every now and then. Jigsaw kill, Nade or Nitrocell. And that really now reshapes the round for Invictus. 3 versus 2, all the pressure onto Rix and Ape.
Ape's in a good position. He snuck into waiting. 2 players in initiation. They're watching the doorway. Rix as well. I think he went for a plant inside a vault, but you can't do that. Now behind the desk will look to stick.
Oh, the peek, the little shoulder peek, then fall back. That's information on 8. That makes it very difficult now. Despite the diffuser being planted, still a lot of intel goes over to Invictus. Now they do lose Nate to Ape, and now he's in a 1 versus. That's a wonderful shot, by the way. Not a whole lot to really see and envision away. Now in a 1 versus 1, Mentalist low on health and has to, of course, go for the counter defuse with Ape running around on the Amaru, hitting shots left, right, and center. 12 and 5. Here's the shots go out. Knows where he is. Knows he has to stick it. Knows he has what it takes to clutch up big. Ape. Massive play. Gladiators take the lead of this game.
Ape is having the best game of his career right now. I do not remember him popping off to this extent ever. That is an incredible play. To manipulate himself inside of waiting was one thing, to then fall back was another, but then to hit the 3K, the second one in particular onto Jigsaw behind the deployable shield, absolutely insane. Of course, then slowed down the tempo, forced Mentalist onto the diffuser. Played it absolutely spot on. That is how you clutch a round of Siege. And now Gladiators, I think, have really snatched a lot of this momentum. They have the lead. They're now 1 round away from match point. Wow. Which is a huge storyline, huge implications. Again, when you consider that IG really scrapping points at the moment. They only got a single one against Knights in the final Playday, and it seems like that rift to the teams at the top is growing ever increasingly as these Playdays progress.
And remembering Gladiators play Fury in Playday 3, they'll fancy themselves there. It's not a given, as I said earlier on at the beginning of this particular match, but it's one that you kind of look at and you think, well, if they can take down Chiefs, if they can take down IG, surely Fury isn't going to be the impossible task. If they then win that, the GG Elevate game in Playday 4 becomes an absolute banger. Remembering, no playoffs, all right? So obviously, guys, once we get to Playday 4, 5, 6, etc., those games start to hold more weight and more meaning than ever before, because you're going to actually start to see certain teams that will either mathematically just not be possible in making it into the top 2, or pretty much at that sort of point, that teetering point where it's like, if you lose this, then it's very unlikely, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, and I know, again, it's early days, it's only Playday 2, but you referenced it, IG, only the 1 point from Playday 1. That was against the Knights. If they lose this as well, you know, it doesn't make it impossible, but it makes it unlikely, and you don't want to be in that position. Ape continues to go bananas here in Playday 2, up to 14 and 5.
Sure is going absolutely insane. Still has 2 grenades in the pocket as well and hungry for more picks. But for now, he can just settle down. That's Jigsaw taken care of. He himself has been a standout for Invictus in this one. And Gladiators putting their absolute best foot forward for match point, securing at least 1 point towards the standings, increasing their chances of retaining first place in APAC South. The grenades from Hoven. Something we haven't mentioned. The Glaz in play. Frag grenades as well. So might see a little bit more play across the board here. The Salmas hit, the impacts don't. Another L in the column of Invictus for this round.
Attackers have located a bomb.
80 seconds remaining in the 10th round. Gladiators not too far away now from basically picking up a pretty crucial match point and OT point confirmation. It would put them above Elevate back into the top 2. Just for reference, of course, again, it's early days, but it's always fun keeping an eye on those kind of ramifications. Do still have the opportunity, of course, to get all 3 points, and by securing this round would then take away the IG chance of getting all 3 points. So for Invictus now, they have to win the next 3 rounds, including this, if they want all 3 points from this game. It's looking increasingly unlikely. Only 40 seconds remaining now. Ape through corridor, didn't check behind him. And that's going to be his downfall, and maybe the downfall for the Gladiators, holding on the Glaz. But of course, the Kiba barrier blocking a lot of what he wants to see. Nate with a nice shot as well onto Joe. Got the trade after losing Hysterics. Suddenly now IG with a big advantage to close out this 10th round.
They really just don't have enough counters for those Kiba barriers. They are posing so many issues, and IG playing into them perfectly. Told you. Do we see another 1v3? I doubt it. 10 seconds. left. The Jackal desperately trying to find something, but hope running out, time running out. Tolji tries to desperately find something. It's one pick, but he needs 2 more. And they won't reveal themselves. Speak Easy eventually does to secure the round. 5-5 the scoreline.
Well, a big sigh of relief if you're an Invictus fan, if you predicted them, or you're just generally a fan, because when you look back to the start of that round, it had all of the makings of the round win for Gladiators, but to the credit of IG, they stuck true to themselves. They didn't obviously give in. They didn't look panicked either. Held their positions, really well played. And the truth of the matter is, this is not really a throw by IG. Gladiators are just playing really, really well. So now it's about IG responding. They take the tactical timeout off the back of that round win, and they're not in, say, the worst position, guys. It's what, 4-5 now? Suddenly, that doesn't look too bad. They're still on the defense. They know they can bring this back, and they know that they can ruin this little fairy tale story that is developing here on Theme Park. They're good enough to do it. Take a little timeout. And now, realistically, at the conclusion of this tactical timeout, all that momentum that we saw built up by the Gladiators should be evaporated.
I really like what we saw in the previous round from IG. The keeper barrier is posing a lot of issues. That said, I think it's a little bit disappointing, the composition that the attackers brought. With attacker repick, there's a very fair chance that you should know or at least sacrifice 1 drone to get a read on potential defenders. If they see an Azami, for me personally, I'd be straight away taking out the Glaz. Yes, he has a couple of nades. Put in the Hibana. Hibana is the perfect counter to keeper barriers, and we've seen it time and time again. You get the launcher out, you shoot them down in towards side, and it would have, I think, weakened a lot of the defensive structure that Invictus had established in that round. It may have pried things open just a little bit.
Yep.
Nonetheless, I mean, no point worrying about that too much now. We need to focus in. 5-5, the scoreline. We'll see a site rotation back upstairs. And this round last time came right down to a 1 versus 2, so it could well be very close once more.
So 5-5 scoreline between IG and Gladiators. This is always my favorite round, round 11, especially at a 5-5 scoreline where, well, obviously by this point, the next round is going to be not only at match point, but also secured 1 point at minimum for either team. You just wonder, does this put the pressure back onto Gladiators now? They had that little fairy tale run to get it up to 5-4. They had the opening pick from the round prior, round 10, and it looked like they were going to be able to secure that match point. Now, the pressure back onto them to convert on the attack of Theme Park. It's not easy. I think the biggest thing that has been a worry for me, guys, has been the loss of Hoven early in these rounds on the Finca. You're playing an operator that ideally needs to be alive the longest so that you can have, obviously, that impact for the late round execute. And if you're going down early and you're losing those adrenal surges, it does not help. And that's probably been the biggest takeaway for me for Gladiators. Outside of that, obviously, they've been great. Ape is having a miraculously fantastic, incredibly super great day. Everything you can use to say it's been probably the best game he's ever played, I think, as you said before. We'll see how it continues here, though, in the 11th round.
Just continuing on from that discussion in the previous round about the Hibana and the Azami interaction, we did see Tolji actually attack a repick of Hibana onto Kaye. Now, that is obviously going to aid in opening up some of these walls alongside Rix on Ace for hard breach. But that said, the trouble's really going to start to come when Gladiators need to push aside. We haven't seen a decent read as to how the Azami and Speakeasy is actually setting up these barriers. Very dynamic, can obviously adjust them to where the push is coming from the attack, but this could pose some potential issues depending on whether or not Gladiators commit grenades to clearing them. If they don't, well, they're sort of entering the unknown a little bit. Those barriers offering a lot of protection and allowing defenders to play positions they typically otherwise wouldn't.
90 seconds remaining. Hoven trying to see if he can find a sneaky angle through the drone hole. We've seen a couple of kills through that manner. Find it yet. First adrenal search does go out from Hoven. That one, he's alive and able to get that out. And a little heal as well for Joe. But no real hard engagement yet.
70 seconds. Pressure starting to mount now for both teams. They know the importance of this round and the importance of their next few moves. Gladiators down below looking to set up for a sneak up yellow stairs. If this works, it could completely catch IG off guard, but if it fails, if it's shut down, I don't think the rest of the team can recover the round. So the play from these two, absolutely critical in the context of this match.
Flash goes up, 8 makes the push, but they already cleared out Hoven. So that's a player down on the other side of Yellow Stairs. Tolji, nice push through the Gali. Got the headshot kill onto Hysterics. One inside the cafe, headshot. 8 does not miss that. He may get another one as well. No, the keeper barrier. Oh, they both swing at the same time. I thought there could have been some kind of collateral there for a moment, but Mentalist got 2 in quick succession. And now Jigsaw getting rid of Tolji means it's all up to Rix in a 1 versus 3 time against him, but finds the head of Jigsaw at a crucial time. Does still have the diffuser, but again now into red time, pushing in through yellow corridor. The spray ineffective, and now out of time as well. Can't find that shot onto Speakeasy. It's match point, and it is OT point secured as well for Invictus Gaming.
Invictus leaning so well into the Azami. Gladiators, though, not making it any easier for themselves. They're leaving it so late into the round, they don't have the correct utility to deal with them. And you can see they're just not going to win these fights. It's very, very lopsided against them, where Invictus, with a bit of information, a bit of initiation, can swing, find those kills. And there's just nothing you can really do from Gladiators standing still. The play up yellow did have an impact, but it simply just was not enough. And these last couple of rounds, really starting to catch up to Gladiators.
Just have to wonder, has the steam sort of run out from the little run that they had going for them? Has it caught up to them, guys? You know, they reached almost this sort of incredible high where it's like, oh, we can win this. Everything's going so well. And since that point, since even being up 5-4 in that 10th round, it's just all fallen away from them. But so much of that due to the way that we've seen Invictus play. They've had some incredible moments over the last 2 rounds to really bring this game back into their contention. They've got match point, they've got that OT point, and now as we head to lab storage for the 12th round, I think they've got a point to prove. Despite maybe the little rise of the Gladiators, it's Invictus that are still the kings.
Well, interestingly enough, the Azami, this is the one time we're actually not going to see it played, and I guess it's likely because this site much harder to bunker down on. It's definitely seen more of an aggressive extension, and IG just not seeing that being particularly useful. Instead, they're guessing Goya in play. Might cut down on any aggressive plays for Gladiators if they go for something in the early round, so I don't mind that. But yeah, the dynamic has certainly been shifting the last couple of rounds. I just don't think Gladiators have really been playing into the weaknesses maybe of these defensive setups, but nonetheless, they're still in with a shot to push over time, still in with a chance to maintain their spot towards the top of the standings. Now, with Wildcard winning tonight, they will secure that first place. I mean, you look past that first place, it is incredibly close. So again, every single point here is going to matter for both teams.
I want your opinion, though, guys, on the Flores pick here from Joe going into this match point round and the effectiveness of those Roteros and sort of where you're going to be getting that utility. I guess the Mute Jammers could be one. You get the Banshees as well. Vulcan canisters as well, technically. So we see one get blown up there from Mentalist playing the Goyo. But not a bad actual pick here. On lab storage, of course, the Flores can just kind of sit outside and freely send those in. And for the Gladiators, that could be a way for them to maybe find a way to really open up that site and make things a little easier towards the mid and late round of this match point round.
This is the sort of counterplay that I think has been lacking a little bit from the Gladiators, but they're making it work. IQ on the roof, being able to red ping out that information. The Twitch now with those shock drones coming along and clearing those on the top floor. Really like that from the Gladiators, a perfect counter and cutting down on some of that utility Invictus have on the top floor. And now Hoven, who's been so quiet in this game, looking to maybe capitalize upon that and find a couple of kills.
95 seconds remaining in the round. Invictus looking to capitalize and get all 3 points. Make their hopes of a major. Still well and truly capable of happening in this stage 2. Hoven, what an angle.
Ooh.
A pixel. And he gets the head of Jigsaw. And he gets a very vital elimination. Advantage Gladiators here in the 12th round. A minute left. Invictus, though, have shown their prowess at bringing back rounds after losing the first pick Lab storage, a good site for it as well. They can sit back, but a lot of utility has already been cleared by Joe on those Ruteros.
They've got it to pick and they've got some control above, but Gladiators don't really have much pressure on the horizontal over towards the likes of Throne. That said, with two-man advantage, it might not matter. Mentalist, though, does find one back. 11 kills for him so far in this game, and I think Gladiators have almost forfeited the map control, instead going for the window. Push Joe as well in on the action. It's a 2v4.
Overtime brewing. Timing, though, from Hob of the nade. Catches him with the Adrenal Surge, of course, gets him back up, and that's it. We go to overtime. Invictus cannot close out in regulation. We need a couple more rounds to settle this one.
Oh, and it closes the gap once more. Can't pick apart these two in regulation, so overtime we go. Gladiators, who brought back that previous round, will continue their run on the attack here in overtime. And I just want to continue those good vibes, which we're lacking a little bit in the previous rounds, but that final one on point, a good clear up above, a good couple of picks for the advantage. But this is where things did not look good for them. Armory, Throne, Azami. You add that equation into the mix, and the Gladiators just, I mean, they didn't have the calculator. They just could not find the answer on how to disrupt that setup. That said, look at their lineup now. It's infinitely better. They've gotten rid of the Nook, they've gotten rid of the Glides. They're not relying on these weird frag grenade sort of strats to pay off. They're going simple. They are going for the Habana, who has so much utility to clear them. They're six-picking some of the other operators. I was going to say, if they six-picked off Habana, I would have been very much scratching my head. But I actually don't mind it, right? They're bringing the Jackal, retain the Sledge, good information, Ape onto the Finker. To me, that makes more logical sense. The player who's clearly looking the sharpest on the attack, get him on that fragging operator if you want that Finker to be an aggressive utility.
5 seconds to insertion.
All locked in now. Finker, Sledge, Jackal, along with the Havana. And the Thermite as well for Rix. See how they can counteract the Azami of Hysterics. It's been a talking point. It's been so strong. And this game has also been our first overtime here for Playday 2 of APAC South. Of course, our earlier matches. Fury 7-2 over Chiefs, Wildcard 7-5 over Direwolves, and Elevate 7-3 over Knights. So this one going the distance. I'm not going to lie, guys, at the start of the night, had you said one goes to OT, this would have been probably the one I least expected to actually go to overtime, and yet here we are.
Bit more pressure up above here. Instigated by Invictus. I thought I saw a Thunderbird outline, but perhaps my eyes are deceiving me. Nonetheless, there is someone over towards that arcade balcony. Elsewhere, Ape, taken low. Jigsaw, what? Another Nitro hits the mark. The top fragger from Gladiators taken down. And again, the Finker falling short. That has happened so many times for the Gladiators on these attacks.
I want to know how many kills at this point Jigsaw has from nades and Nitro cells. It's got to be over 6.
I think you'd be pretty close,
He's somewhat close. Maybe 6 is about the mark. It's been incredible from Jigsaw. For Invictus now, they get the opening pick. They have a 5 versus 4 player advantage with 90 seconds remaining in the round. Oven still one more challenge in that Inox scanner on the Jackal, but at this point, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Everyone basically on site. Somehow Speakeasy's just taken a big chunk of damage, but has those Kona stations to heal back up to full health. A little bit tilting there if you're the Gladiators, because it's almost like they just did nothing to him.
60 seconds now remains, and Gladiators want to get to quick work on the maintenance wall into Throne, but there is a mute jammer, so that disruption could be a little bit tricky to deal with. Elsewhere on the vert, Gladiators get to work. The nade over the wall will rid it of that jammer. Wall opened up, but no, it's denied. The exothermic doesn't land, and there's a mute jammer being juggled by Speakeasy. That could be the perfect counter. Jigsaw as well, in on the action, gets another kill. And it's really falling apart here once more on the Throne site for Gladiators.
Yeah, forget the battle of the wall. Jigsaw's just killing everyone that he comes across at this point now in the last couple of rounds. Now 13 and 9. Holding over towards Yellow Stance, pushing down. Rix will be able to get that exothermic charge off. And I thought for a second maybe he might get caught running back and someone just sitting in the wall. That's an incredible angle from Oven, but he can't find the kill. I think he honestly needed to at that point. Rix, though, does get Speakeasy. We saw this keeper barrier start to go out as well on site. That's something that Gladiators will have to deal with. They need to deal with Nate too. Jigsaw finds 3 in the round. It's IG, though. But they'll take match point once again. This time, though, it's overtime. Match point. They want to get all 2 points that are still available.
An even stronger effort there from Invictus on that objective. Jigsaw offsite, 2 kills. Just made the life of the players remaining on the objective itself so much easier. Then, really late into the round, Speakeasy pocketing those keeper barriers, then deploying them. That was all but a nail in the coffin for the Gladiators. That site absolutely costing them this game, potentially more points, if that ends up being the case. Now, though, Gladiators will shift across to the defense. Not the same site, though. We go to Daycare and Bunk for their attempt to keep this match alive.
Gladiators need to win the next 2 rounds. At minimum, though, they do have 1 point secured. Remember it, they got all 3 points in Playday 1, so if this does kind of play out in the way that IG win this game, in terms of leaderboard standings, IG go to 3 points, Gaming Gladiators go to 4 points. It would also mean we have a very competitive start, of course, to APAC South, which is no surprise at all, really. The Gladiators can turn this one around and collect the 2 points. They'll go to 5 points. They'll go to clear standout second place in after the first 2 Playdays. Then going into their match against Fury in Playdate 3 would really set them up for a tilt at the major spot. They need to win the next 2, though, if they are to collect those points. Invictus switch things up now, of course, over onto the attack. Gladiators onto the defense. They don't bring the Azami, though. They bring the Thorn for Ape, who has been fragging out. It's a decent gun, 16 and 8. Razor Bloom shells as well. Can have an impact, but generally quite rare. And that's... That guy does get immediately destroyed.
Serik's on the rappel, just applying pressure on that break room window. But you want to survive for the late round. That's where those Candelas from the Ying are going to be most impactful. Now 4 as opposed to 3. That changed a couple of months ago. But the flash duration has been reduced. In competitive play, though, that shouldn't cause too many issues. In fact, it should be seen as a buff, as you can time that and coordinate it to a really high degree. Elsewhere, over towards the east, the cash entry being monitored by Joe, again, former player on this Invictus roster, has had a solid game so far. Much like the rest of the lobby, it hasn't honestly felt like too many players are sort of dragging their weight. You look at Ape, and maybe you could make the argument that he's put a bit of weight on his shoulders, but outside of a big clutch and a couple of kills, he's just been racking them up consistently. He hasn't necessarily been going absolutely nuclear. Nonetheless, though, 90 seconds now remains this round. What's the game plan for Invictus to get their way onto site?
Well, it's not so much Invictus, it's what's the game plan here for Gladiators. When they were on the defense, all that while back, it was rather passive, on site. The only time we ever saw them somewhat aggressive was when they were playing the Azami as well. They set up those sort of corridor holds outside away from site, forcing Invictus to push through that, clear out that utility. But obviously not bringing the Azami here, and you look at their setup that they've got, very much on-site defense, a lot of utility that Invictus need to clear through, slows things down. Joe, though, goes against the grain, swings into Cafe, finds the opening pick onto Jigsaw. So from that slow approach, they pick their time to push, and they've picked it perfectly. Ape, does he expect more to now push and try and get yellow stairs control again for IG? Hysteric's got one back elsewhere. That was on Joe, that would have been close by to Cafe. Hoven still there as well, Rix as well. 35 seconds left, they cannot give up this yellow stairs control. Now the gas babes go out from Tolji.
Yellow stairs really critical. Nate, diffuser in hand, he'll want to get across, get in towards the site, try and rely on Hysteric's and Mentalist for coverage. They still have a couple of Candelas they might be able to use.
King out as well, Tolji knows the play to his right-hand side. Next gas babe goes out. Now we can fully focus, of course, on just fragging out. Top yellow, control still, though, for Ape and GAIMIN Gladiators. They've got the extra play, the swing. What a shot, though, the other way. Ape's down 2. It's all going the way for Invictus. No one can stand up at all against the IG train. Full steam ahead, full 2 points. And a hard-fought victory indeed. They were pushed to their limits, but they pushed through. IG take the win.
Just when it felt like we were heading to a 15th and final round in the best of 1, Invictus against Ape on that yellow stairs position, made those trades work, sent it deep into sight, got the job done. 8-6 the scoreline, that's 2 more points for IG, and they are now a serious threat in the mid-table.
What a shot onto Ape on top yellow stairs. I thought he was the linchpin. I thought he was the guy that was going to win it for GAIMIN Gladiators from that position. But no, he got shut down so quickly, and so it really did the Gladiators defense in the end. Well played to Invictus, guys. They deserved the 2 points from that game. And in some ways, they may feel like they should have got all 3. Of course, they had match point in regulation. Credit to Gladiators, of course. They were able to win out that 12th round, send it to OT, and secure that point. So many different ramifications, of course, now when it comes to the point.